I was not happy. Because I rushed into marriage before our love had truly matured, my husband and I lived like two strangers under the same roof. The only thing that kept us together in this bleak marriage was our children. I believed that for two people to become husband and wife, there must be a special karmic connection between them. Why did I marry this man instead of anyone else? Whenever I felt lonely and heartbroken by a life without love, I often asked myself that question. My name is CQ. I grew up in a poor farming family in ND. Since childhood, I had a deep admiration for Buddhism. Whenever I came across Buddhist scriptures, I eagerly read them. After I married, I moved with my husband to HN, where we lived with his parents. I always tried my best to fulfill my duties as a daughter-in-law. I was careful with every word I spoke and every action I took in front of my in-laws. I never dared to raise my voice or argue with them. Yet, the more I tried to please them, the more they rejected me. They even scolded me and insulted my own family. Everything I did seemed to irritate my in-laws. They opposed my chanting of Buddhist scriptures and recitation of the Buddha's name, criticizing me over even the smallest matters. I suffered greatly, unable to understand what I had done wrong to deserve such treatment. The unhappiness in my marriage and the constant conflicts with my in-laws gradually wore me down. The only refuge I had was the Buddha. But whenever they saw me chanting or praying, they forbade it, calling me foolish and crazy. Eventually, I only dared to recite the sutras and the Buddha's name silently in my heart. My father-in-law, in particular, treated me as though I were his enemy. He constantly invented reasons to scold me, and as a daughter-in-law, I could only endure it in silence. He did not need facts or logic, he simply looked for excuses to criticize me. There was even one occasion when he threatened to hit me, but the neighbors intervened before he could. Many times, I felt as though I were living under house arrest, trapped with no way out. One evening, after finishing my daily chanting, I silently prayed to the Buddha. I asked for his blessings so I could understand the karmic connection between my husband and me, hoping to finally lay down the heavy burden I had carried in my heart for so many years. After praying, I went to sleep. That night, I had an extraordinary dream. It was remarkably vivid and lifelike. I saw a village filled with people. Leading them was a sorcerer holding a weapon. Together with the villagers carrying clubs and staffs, they were chasing a group of demons. Somehow, they captured the demons and sealed each one inside glass-like cages. The villagers lit torches, surrounded the cages, pasted sealing talismans on them, and then left. Terrified, I turned my head, and suddenly saw a green-faced demon with pale, lifeless skin, like a walking corpse. To my horror, I realized that I was one of the imprisoned demons. My chest felt unbearably heavy, as though a giant boulder were pressing upon it. My mind was completely awake, yet I could not move. My mouth was stiff, and I could not utter a single word. In despair, I begged for someone to rescue me. While I had been free, I had never harmed anyone. I kept praying continuously for 3 days. On the 3rd day, I prayed, if someone would save me, I would remain grateful for the rest of my life and beyond. Immediately afterward, someone appeared. He tore away the sealing talisman and set me free. To my astonishment, I recognized him. It was my husband in this lifetime. The dream then shifted. I saw myself as a royal consort in an imperial palace. My husband, in that lifetime, was a prince, the king's son, but he was not favored by the king. Worse still, other royal consorts constantly slandered and falsely accused him behind his back. Because I owed him a life debt from an even earlier lifetime, he was the one who had broken the seal and released me when I was that imprisoned demon. I devoted myself to protecting him. I defended him and spoke up to clear his name. When I awoke, I finally understood why I had become this man's wife. It turned out that I still owed him a debt of gratitude for saving my life in a previous existence. Through many lifetimes, karmic affinity had brought us together again, allowing me to repay what I owed him. I continued chanting the sutras every day. Not long afterward, another dream came. In the dream, I was a wealthy woman with servants working in my household. I had a fierce temper and frequently scolded and humiliated a young male servant. Sometimes I even threatened to beat him, though I never actually carried it out. Then I realized that the young servant was my present-day father-in-law. How perfectly just karma is. If you scold others, one day you will be scolded in return. My father-in-law was treating me exactly as I had treated that young servant in a previous life. Only then did I understand that all the suffering I experienced in my marriage and with my husband's family had deep roots in karmic debts and unresolved grievances carried over from previous lifetimes. Had I not persevered in chanting the sutras and sincerely devoted myself to the Buddha, receiving his blessings to understand these karmic causes, I would probably still have been trapped in confusion and despair, blaming my circumstances and drowning in suffering without any way out. But why had I been fortunate enough to encounter the Buddha's teachings so early in life? One night, another dream about a previous life gave me the answer. In that lifetime, long ago during the age of emperors, I had been a Buddhist monk living in a secluded mountain monastery. I practiced diligently and had developed a certain degree of spiritual power. Unfortunately, I could not overcome my competitive nature. One day, while the abbot was away, several monks gathered together to chat. One of them enthusiastically proposed a contest to see who possessed the greatest spiritual ability by inviting the arhats to manifest themselves. I immediately volunteered to go first. For nearly an hour, I concentrated wholeheartedly, praying for the arhats to appear. At last, they did. 18 arhats manifested, each standing upon a large tree, each with a unique appearance. I won the contest. Yet I utterly failed in that lifetime as a cultivator. Although I practiced Buddhism, my mind remained filled with pride and competitiveness. After summoning the arhats, my accumulated merit was severely depleted. Not only did I fail to attain any spiritual realization during that lifetime, but after I died, I fell into the realm of hungry ghosts, the very lifetime in which my present-day husband rescued me. Fortunately, wholesome karmic affinity with the Buddha Dharma is incredibly resilient. Even after falling into unfortunate realms, once one's negative karma has eventually been exhausted over many lifetimes, the aspiration to cultivate the Dharma naturally arises again. That is why, in this lifetime, I developed reverence for Buddhism from an early age. By the age of 9 or 10, I had already chosen to practice vegetarianism, release crabs and snails back into nature, and eagerly read and recited Buddhist scriptures whenever I encountered them. Around January 2020, while browsing the internet, I happened to discover Quart. I shared with him all the difficulties and confusion I had been experiencing. He advised me to dedicate the merit from my daily sutra chanting and Buddha recitation to my husband and my parents-in-law. He explained that this was the fastest way to repay karmic debts. Once those debts were repaid, they would no longer create suffering for me, and I would regain inner peace. He also recommended that I listen to a Dharma talk titled, Karmic Debts and How to Repay Them. After listening to it, I immediately put the teaching into practice. I became even more diligent in my daily cultivation. Every day, for about 4 hours over several consecutive months, I recited the Ksitigarbha Sutra, the 10,000 Buddhas Sutra, the Ulambana Sutra, the Amitabha Sutra, the Great Compassion Mantra, and repentance prayers. I dedicated all the merit to my husband and my parents-in-law. I also transferred merit to all karmic creditors and sentient beings throughout the Dharma realm. Sure enough, after some time, peace gradually returned to my family. My parents-in-law no longer scolded me as often as before. The only exception was when I stopped practicing vegetarianism and began eating meat again. Whenever I did, conflicts would arise once more. Otherwise, things remained peaceful. Previously, I had suffered from a herniated disc and terrible lower back pain. After diligently chanting the sutras and dedicating the merit, the pain unexpectedly disappeared. My children also stopped getting sick so frequently. The spiritual power of the Buddha's teachings is truly inconceivable. The more I came to understand my previous lives, the more deeply I appreciated the fairness and certainty of the law of cause and effect. There is nothing truly unreasonable or unfair in this world. People simply do not know what causes they themselves planted in the past. They suffer without understanding why they suffer. They blame heaven, blame other people, or seek every kind of superstition hoping to escape their misery. That was once my own condition as well. How fortunate are those who encounter the Buddha Dharma, develop faith in the law of cause and effect, and rely upon the methods taught by the Buddha to transform their karmic obstacles. Not only can they find peace and happiness in this present life, but they also accumulate immeasurable wholesome merit for the future as they continue walking toward the fulfillment of Buddhahood. May more and more people, and indeed all sentient beings, be blessed with the opportunity to encounter this wonderful and precious affinity with the Buddha Dharma.